Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the great big subscribe button right here, right now. Please hit that bell icon to get notified of every time I go live right now or post a new video. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content as we go along. If you didn't know who I am Sandra Bellamy, author of Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories, Love, Life and Sex, a celebration of bisexual diversity. I'm also the founder of asexualise.com and the founder of Asexualise Academy. And if you didn't know, it's Asexual Perspectives this month in July. And welcome to day 15, I believe. Let me check my calendar. Oh no, 16. We're on 16 now. Time's moving really fast. So day 16 of Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, and this means I'll be reading from my Asexual Perspectives book, which is to celebrate our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. So throughout Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, I read passages from this book because that's why I founded Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month in the month of July, back 2 years ago when I first published this book. There are links below if you want to grab a copy of it. It's 47 real life asexual stories that can help you a lot in your own asexual journey, because there's a lot of advice and useful perspectives in there that you can relate to. So I asked my 46 asexuals, because I'm the 47th asexual in the book, I asked them this question. And I'm going to be reading some of the story answers out to you. So can you tell me a time when you have had to deal with intrusive questions or a difficult situation due to your asexuality, and what happened? Now, I really got interested in Marnie's story. I mean, the story spans all the answers to her questions. But I think this particular paragraph that she's written here is very insightful. So I'm going to read it to you. Yeah. So this is Marnie's answer. Before I knew about asexuality, so I'm reading from the book, so that's why I'm looking away from the screen sometimes. So before I knew about asexuality, just talking about sex with my husband was so difficult. Number one, I didn't like talking about it because it made me feel uncomfortable. Number two, we constantly had the same argument over and over again about sex. Number three, I couldn't explain what I didn't understand myself. Number four, my husband felt I was looking outside of our marriage for sexual companionship since I didn't want to have sex with him. And he was extremely jealous of every other man in my life because of it. Number five, it created a bad situation for us because we pushed family and friends away so they wouldn't feel the tension in our relationship. And I think that's what's quite sad about that, it's the fact that it caused so much friction between them as a couple that they were afraid that other people, family members and friends, could feel that friction between them. So not only was the topic of sex creating discomfort for this person, Marnie, it's creating difficulties with her and her husband, and it's consequently, like rolling out. It had like this domino effect, and I think that's something that's not really talked about so much, because we in general, asexuals don't like sex. In general, I say there's some that do. And in general, sex causes us a lot of issues with people who are sexual if we're in a relationship with a sexual person, which, given the fact that asexuals are supposed to be a recorded 1% of the population, it makes it likely that at some point in our life we will be with a sexual person. And so it can make it really difficult to talk to that sexual person about it. It's so much better if you can be upfront before you get into a relationship, but not everyone realizes they're asexual until they're already partway through the relationship. So if you're an asexual that has the fortune to be able to know you're asexual before getting into a relationship, it's imperative that you tell the other person that. It's not fair to a sexual person, if they need sex, to not tell them the truth that you're asexual. You shouldn't be keeping that from them. You shouldn't be keeping that from them. It's not fair to anyone you get into a relationship to not disclose that. You know, I mean, if you get into a relationship with another asexual, you should be telling them what type of asexual you are and what you like and what you don't like. There's no point in getting into a relationship with another asexual person, for example. You hate kissing and they love it. It's not going to work, is it? Unless you compromise. And if you really kissing repulse, not just sex repulse, but kissing repulse, it ain't going to work. So it's really imperative that you be really upfront, honest, and open, because you don't want situations like this happening. But, you know, this person's married and, you know, they discovered they're asexual. And so it caused, you know, like issues and friction for them. But they, you know, that happens sometimes because if an asexual doesn't find out till partway through the relationship, then, you know, it's a difficult thing to deal with, but it still has to be tackled. There's no point in shoving it under the carpet, because you can't do that forever. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's very difficult for asexuals and sexuals, especially if they didn't know that asexual person was asexual at the beginning of the relationship. You know, it causes a lot of problems and issues. But it doesn't mean to say that it's unresolvable. But, you know, sometimes you have to move on and you have to split up. You have to get divorced. You have to go your separate ways, because you can't be living a life for the rest of your life which both of you are unhappy with. So of course, first of all, you try to work out your differences. You try to compromise if you felt safe and comfortable doing the compromise. But if you don't, you know, if your person wants sex and, you know, you don't want to do it, then unless they get sex elsewhere, and if you're monogamous you won't want that, then, you know, there's like only so much you can do of going round in circles. Do you know what I mean? It's better to set each other free to be able to meet a person that's more suitable for you in sexual needs. Do you know what I mean? Which could be a lack of sexual needs in the case of asexuals. Right, so Cassie's story. How difficult, can you tell me about a time when you've had to deal with intrusive questions or a difficult situation due to asexuality, and what happened? There have been many times when acquaintances would question my being single and dismiss my asexuality, saying I just needed to lower my standards already. That'll all change once I meet the right person. That I'm just in denial because I want to be special. That I should go out and live a little, have fun with different guys, etc. Not really difficult, but highly uncomfortable, especially since they refuse to listen. As far as intrusive questions go, sometimes acquaintances learn of my asexuality and take it upon themselves to question me on whether I've dated/had sex. And upon learning that the answers are yes, claimed that my partners just didn't do a good job. And so I should try someone else. Whether or not I even masturbated, as if it's any of their business what I do or don't do with my body, and as if that has any connection with me finding anyone sexually attractive or not. What my parents did when they found out, like they were supposed to do something, and whether or not I've been to the doctor, psychiatrist, had myself checked out, all of these are both intrusive and highly annoying. As well as the implication that if I don't find anyone sexually attractive, I must be ill one way or another. Yeah, and I think this is really damaging. You know, it's very damaging to a person, to an asexual person, to have all this thing with the society where they think you there's something wrong with you if you don't want sex. There's nothing wrong with you. It's perfectly natural for anyone who's got the sexual orientation of asexual to not want sex, because we're absence of sexual attraction. So it's a perfectly normal, natural thing for an asexual to be like. You don't need no psychiatrist, no psychologist, no doctor telling you what you are or aren't. You're perfectly capable of making your own choices and decisions in life and deciding for yourself what sexual orientation you are. You don't need someone to tell you. Yeah, you don't. You don't need someone to validate you. I'm asexual. That's it. Hi, Martin. It's like saying, oh, you're heterosexual. Did you have a bad experience with the same gender as you? Oh, that's a good one. Yes, it is. I mean, I remember having a really difficult situation. I think I've told you about it before on this channel, but maybe you weren't watching at the time, Martin. And it was a time when I was in a taxi with a taxi driver, and I told him I was asexual, and he just couldn't believe it. He was that freaked out by it. He goes, "Oh, you must be in a daze." And I said, "Well, if you're heterosexual, you must be in a daze then too." And he hated it, but he was driving me home and he started getting really angry in the car with the steering wheel, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I had to just shut up because I didn't want him deciding to drive me into a curb and smashing the vehicle up. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of thought, Sandra, I know you want to stick up for asexuality and you've done it, and he's really peed off with you for doing it, but you'll just have to sit pretty much in silence now till you get out of the car because I didn't want an accident. Do you know what I mean? And so he didn't like the fact I said it back to him. He really couldn't believe it. But I don't want to sit there like playing small in life, And it's very much, like when that people say stuff like, whether you've been to a doctor, psychiatrist, and had yourself checked out. I mean, what do they expect to find? Do you know what I mean? I don't know what they expect to find. It's just silly to me. It's just crazy. It's just crazy for people to not see something in front of their eyes, to be in denial about what actually is in life. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't deny oxygen, yet you can't see it. We're breathing oxygen all the time. You don't deny that oxygen exists. I mean, time. No, people don't disagree that time is real, but we can't really see time. We've only got a clock to tell the time. There's nothing else about time. We're just alive. That's it. If someone had invented the clock, people probably wouldn't even think about the word time. It wouldn't exist. Do you know what I mean? So everything comes from, everything's created at some point in life, and ends up being, it is that way. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of things like electricity. You can't see electricity. The only thing you can see is the product of electricity. When you switch a light on, it comes on, and that's called electricity. You can't see it. Do you know what I mean? It's the same with sexual orientation. You are what you believe you are, what you say you are, and what you in your heart and mind and soul know you are. I mean, obviously, some people lie, but you know what you really are at the end of the day. And, no doctor or psychiatrist is going to fix that because there is nothing to fix. What needs fixing is the doctors and the psychiatrist's mindset, because they cannot comprehend in their brain that someone's different to them, because they will likely mostly be heterosexuals that are the ones that think you need checking out, or you need to see a psychiatrist, or you need to see a psychologist. I mean, as you all know from my personal story, it was a counsellor in the UK who I got referred to by the doctor that well, I say I got referred back to by the doctor. I got referred to the doctor for counselling, and then like I'd finished my counselling, and then it's meant to be like a year and a half later, this person popped out of the blue going, "Oh, you've been on a waiting list to see this counsellor." And I'm thinking, well, no, not really, but but I went because of the fact that I didn't like sex in a relationship anymore. Well, I never really liked it in the first place. I didn't want sex in a relationship, and I still wanted a relationship, and I was quite upset about that. I was like, what do I do? Is there anything I can do about it? There must be people like me, I'm guessing, but I honestly didn't think there was. And that's when she told me, well, you'll need to have sex in order to keep a good guy. And I was just like shocked. A professional person telling you that is just ridiculous. That's like telling you, oh, it's fine, you can be raped. It doesn't matter if you hate having sex, you can just let a guy do whatever because he'll be a good guy for doing that to you. If you want to keep a good guy, you'll have to have that. Do you know what I mean? It's like disgusting. It's just a license to get sexually assaulted, manipulated, raped, and all the rest of it. If someone doesn't want sex, they don't like it, how is that guy going to be any good for me? That's not a good guy who goes around doing that, and the only reason they're nice to me is because they wanted me to do that. If I don't do that, they're not nice to me. How is that good? It's not. It's just a very, very vile thing to try and comprehend where the council is even coming from. She wouldn't even look it up. Oh, our computers won't let us look up such a site, look up such a thing. I mean, you'll need sex to keep a good guy, so I'm a bad guy then because I don't need sex to be kept. I probably have the opposite effect, actually. Yeah, I probably have the opposite effect. Yeah, I mean, it's just horrible, isn't it? She's basically saying that no guys in the world are good unless they have sex with you. So all the ones that say they don't want sex are no good. It's disgusting. This is just before I found out I was asexual, because that's how I found it out. Because I googled "I love kissing but not sex" when I went home, because I had enough. I thought, this is the worst possible thing. I've come to you to get some help, and all I can be told is something, well, the exact thing I didn't want to hear. And she in the end suggested we don't see each other anymore because she could see I was getting upset. But I was distraught at that point, but I didn't know what to do, because I'm like, well, I don't know what to do, because this is before I googled it. I was a bit stuck. And then when I googled it, and I thought, well, I don't need this woman. Do you know what I mean? She's no good for me. So I phoned up the next day and didn't go back. And now I saw her in the city centre. She gave me this really weird look, and I looked at her back in the eyes. I thought, yes, you did wrong in your job. You should not have been speaking to me like that. You should have not, as a professional person, been telling me I have to have sex in order to keep a good guy. I mean, it's so unprofessional telling the person that. Do you know what I mean? If when you're having counselling, you're classed as like a vulnerable person. Do you know what I mean? And you don't, if you're a vulnerable person, having it shoved into your brain, all right, you've got to have sex. Just imagine if I hadn't found out as asexual and I did take her advice, which I couldn't do. But just imagine, I'd be like trying to have sex with guys when I didn't want to, against my own better judgment, against my mindset, against my body, because I would go into anxiety state. Just to say that, oh, I have a good guy. I don't think those type of guys are good if they're trying to push you into doing something you don't want, so they can behave properly and appropriately to you, and they can respect you because you're having sex. We are bombarded. Hi, Heather. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. We are bombarded of sex advertisements. Yeah, we are bombarded. But I don't watch TV, you see. So I don't watch TV. So basically, that's how I don't see a lot of this sex stuff anymore, because I don't watch TV. I try to only see films on the cinema that have no sex in them whatsoever and no nudity. I don't, I don't read magazines. I don't read newspapers. So I just cut off from a lot of that disgusting stuff. I'd rather see Eeyore and Disney stuff. I'd rather see superhero stuff. I'd rather live in a nice world, my own world, where I don't have to deal with all that rubbish. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I try to cut off from that type of life. So let's have a look what else I'd put in here for some other answers. Right. Waywalker's story. Can you tell me a time when you've had to deal with intrusive questions or difficult situation due to your asexuality, and what happened? Not clearly. 34 of my experiences that ended like that. 34 of my experiences like that ended in corrective rape. As a result, there's a great deal of disassociation associated with this question for me. It is not that I don't want to answer, it's that the flashbacks from the history associated are quite distressing. I mean, when you read that and they say 34 of my experiences that end in corrective rape, I mean, just imagine what this asexual person's been through. I mean, people, I don't understand why people, even this day and age, they're like, oh, I'll fix you, Even I've had a online friend for some time, foreign guy, and he's not asexual. I originally thought he was because he was in a child-free group on Facebook, but I didn't realise it was not an asexual child-free group. I thought it was. And like a few weeks ago, he started saying all this sexual stuff to me. I mean, I know he's sexual, but he doesn't really say, he always used to hint, oh, I like you more than a friend and I fancy you a bit. But he never used to go into sexual details. Well, he went into explicit sexual details. I mean, really explicit, like masturbating over my photographs and stuff. I mean, this is just like really sexually explicit. And he said to me, and I said that and he was like, "Oh, why don't you like sex?" I said, "Because I don't like sex. I'm not interested." And he goes, "Oh, if you had sex with me, you'd love it." And I'm like, "I really wouldn't. No." I said, "I wouldn't want you anywhere near me if you were going to do stuff like that. I wouldn't want you anywhere near me, you know?" It's just horrible. Why do people think they can fix you, you know? I mean, seriously, it would just make me want to not have sex even more if I had a guy like that around me. It wouldn't make me want it, it'd make me less want it. Not that I want it in the first place, but if you're trying to entice an asexual to have sex with you, the last thing you want is someone like that saying about fixing you. It's just, well, they don't use the word fix, but they said about, you'd love it if it was with me. And I'm like, I said to him, I said, "You can't fix my sexual orientation. I am who I am." Do you know what I mean? It was, yeah, it was, he goes, "Oh, I've shown your picture to my friends and they think you're hot." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "But I told them you're asexual." And I'm like, "Whatever." I haven't given him my picture. He's getting them off my Facebook. But, it is. I expect a lot of guys do stuff like that over me. Because I do get a lot of the sexually attractive guys after me, and I'm just like, whatever. Society pressures people as to have sex at an early age. Yeah, Heather, they do. That's something I really hate, and I wish could be changed. I really wished. It's hard. I mean, I know someone who works with the government. I'm Facebook friends with her. She works for the government and she works with schools. And I mentioned about I'd love to get asexuality into schools, but she's not interested in talking to me about that because she and her partner, who are getting married, are highly sexual beings. They love sex as an art form. And I respect them, because they respect me that I'm asexual. I respect them that they're not. But obviously, when they've got a completely different mindset that sex should be an integral part of a relationship, I guess that's why they're not gonna help me out, but it's a shame because they actually work for the government in schools and stuff, and she does a lot with like abuse but sexual abuse comes into that, and therefore people should know that it's okay to not want sex in the first place. Because how many people who are young, who don't want sex, who don't feel sexual attraction, are being thrust into situations where they're having sex that they don't want, and it feels like rape, How many is that happening to? That's just abusive. It's abusive to their own body. It's abusive to their mind because it's something they don't really want. I mean, I can't have sex anymore because I physically can't bring myself to do it. Not that I couldn't do it. I'm not capable, but I have got fibromyalgia and it's bad in that area. So that would hurt me. So kind of like I shouldn't really be doing that anymore. But if there's a will, there's a way, right? But I don't will it. But it's like if I'm kissing a guy really passionately, I'm enjoying that, but I put boundaries in place. It's not going to go any further. It mustn't do. I categorically hate sex. That's what I'm telling them. And when I was dating a Bangladesh guy in 2013, before I found out I was asexual, I couldn't bring myself to have sex with him, even though he wanted it. I was only in a relationship with him 3 weeks because he was after another girl because he liked sex. I forced myself in the end to go in the shower naked with him and shower him down just so he could get like his sexual thrill, if you know what I mean. Because I couldn't do my sex. I just couldn't bring myself to do it anymore. Like, I got some condoms just in case something's going to happen, because obviously being an asexual person in sexual situations, sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know whether, the person's going to pressurize you for sex. You don't know whether you're going to get into a situation sometimes where it's going to be really, I didn't know I was asexual then. Bear in mind, this is 2013. I just didn't really want sex. And so I thought, but you better get condoms just in case, because although you don't want sex, you've had it in the past and you do get aroused, and all this stuff was going through my head. It was like, should I get condoms or not? So I went to a pound shop and got some just in case. And I was thinking, because this guy, I thought the guy really liked me, and I was thinking it's better to be safe than sorry, because you can get into a tricky situation sometimes. You can get into situations when you don't want to be pregnant. Do you know what I'm saying? So, because I came off the pill when I finished with my ex in 2011. Well, he finished it, but I encouraged him finishing it. So he needed to, because he was stalking me when we first split up, and he wouldn't leave me alone. So I made him make the decision the second time around, so he would leave me alone. He still tried to come back with his wrists slashed, but they weren't slashed properly. They were just minor cuts. It's the old blackmail tactic. Oh, I've cut myself, you've got to come back to me because I can't live without you. And of course they can. It's rubbish, psychological rubbish. So that was the end of that. But it's just really horrible and distressing that people are being put in positions where that is sexually dangerous. So, with this Bangladesh guy, because I was like at the stage in my life where I didn't want sex anymore, I didn't think I could do it, but I've kind of like knew I'd done it in the past and knew it was possible. I got some condoms, and I was thinking, this is really weird. Why are you doing this if you don't want sex? But I was thinking, yeah, but you could get into a dangerous situation. You came off the pill, you're not on it anymore. There's no protection. If he decides to jump on you or pounce on you or something, even though you don't want it, it's better to be safe than sorry. Do you know what I mean? And it's a really weird, like in the terms of I don't want it, but sometimes it's better to be safe just in case, because it's really better not to get in a situation like that in the first place. I don't try to put myself in any of that position anymore, because I know I'm asexual now. I'm make it clear. But back then I didn't know it. My parents weren't taking the mickey that I didn't want sex at that point. And when they found out I was asexual, they're different now. But they didn't know that at the time. They're like, well, why don't you want sex? And like, they're really weird, because they don't agree with sex outside of marriage. And I was only just with him a short time. So it's really weird. But I mean, they're fine now, because they know I'm asexual and it makes sense. And my mum says, you've got to be with an asexual guy. You need an asexual guy for you, because you don't like sex. You don't want it. So I was like, yeah, I know. But, so I didn't use the condoms because I didn't want sex, and it didn't come to it. I just couldn't do it. He was talking about having sex, and I just couldn't. I physically, I can't describe how it is, I like physically, my body freezes. It's like, it physically can't bring myself to do that, even though I used to do it in the past. I can't do that anymore. It's like, it's just, like my mind doesn't want it. I can feel highly aroused, my body can get aroused, but I don't want a guy inside me. I don't want the intercourse. It's really weird to explain the difference between how I am now to how I used to be in a past long-term relationship. I mean, obviously it was a long-term committed relationship, my ex, and he was good at that. But my other exes weren't good at sex. They would just stick it in types, and no one wants to stick it in type. That's what a lot of guys actually are like. They're stick it in types. They don't understand how to have good sex. They just literally want to stick their penis in a woman and that be it. And it's like most sexual women even get bored with that. It's like, what's the point? It's just like so boring. Anyone could do that. It's not difficult, is it? Just to stick something in someone. Do you know what I mean? It's like most sexual women, they do want a lot of foreplay. They do want kissing, caressing, cuddling, touching, not just a guy sticking his dick in. Do you know what I mean? And so it's just hot, that type of mentality is horrible, even for a lot of women, for example, that do enjoy sex. It's like, that's why women won't stay usually with guys like that, because it gets boring unless they've always been used to guys like that. I mean, I've had the experience of one guy being good at sex and 4 guys that were rubbish at sex. And like one guy was so aesthetically attractive, but he's foreign, and I got so bored with him after 3 weeks of having sex with him. I just couldn't take it anymore. I just had enough. It hurt, and I just like, he kept saying I want it. I'm like, why? Because I like it, and I was doing it for him, and I couldn't do it anymore. I'm like, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't. And then the Bangladesh guy was in 2000, and because that was years ago, before I actually got with my partner. Why do people even need sex? I get that people are interested in it and whatever, but why is it needed? Why is it pressured in? Why do people need to have kids? I don't get it in the slightest. The only reason I get why people need sex is because they have a high sex drive and they feel a need to release, and so like they don't want to do it through masturbation. They'd rather do it through intercourse because they prefer the feeling of the intercourse than masturbation. Masturbation doesn't satisfy that need. I'm telling you the truth now. I mean, obviously I don't like sex, and you know, it's horrible for me to say that people need sex, but some people genuinely love sex. It's a feeling they get in their body. It's a huge sex drive and they want to consistently fulfill it, and they get a dopamine hit of it. It releases chemicals. Oh yeah, I get that bit. I meant in the context of it being pressured and such. Yeah, of it being pressured and such. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's good, because it's like you've pressurized that person into doing it, so they didn't really want to do it with you in the first place, so why would they? But some people, they don't care about that, and that's how rape situations happen, unfortunately, because they just want the end goal and they don't really care about the person. And that's why, you know, this person, I guess, had this person had corrective rape, which means they blatantly had rape to try, you know, they had forced sex on them to try and prove that it's great with them when it clearly isn't. So yeah, I mean, in the sense of being pressurized, Martin, I mean, they shouldn't need sex that badly that they pressurize anyone into it. But unfortunately, it's like a fish to water, isn't it? They think they've got to have it, and you know, they don't care about what it is. Yeah, sado. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, I agree, Heather. It is sad. It's really, really sad, you know? I mean, it's disgusting that rapes happen. You know, they don't just happen to asexuals, they happen to sexuals too. I knew a sexual friend years ago. He used to live in my house, actually. Not my, you know, I don't own the house. He used to live in the same house as me in a different part of the house. And because I got my own flat, they used to live in a room in the house. And they were telling me, you know, they'd been raped, and they're a highly sexual person. You know, they used to be a stripper for a living. That's what they used to do. They're not, you know, in a club in my city and be a pole dancer and strip off. That's what they used to do for a profession. They got paid for it. And she was telling me about, you know, the fact that she'd had a rape situation happen to her. And so it's not just because of asexuals, because I hate this stigma that it's like, oh, everyone who's asexuals had sexual abuse, that's why you're asexual. Thank you for the thumbs up. But it's not. Whether you're asexual or sexual, you can still have had sexual abuse. And sadly, it is because people are so obsessed with sex that they don't care about hurting someone in the process. The body is just like, it's just like a vessel for them getting what they want. It's just like them going into a car and taking off somewhere because they feel they have to take off and they can't stand it anymore, and they zoom off, and they're using the person's body as like a vehicle to get where they want to go. And it's disgusting and it's horrible. I mean, it's sick what people do to little babies as well, you know. I don't really want to go into that, but you know what I'm saying. It's horrible. You know, I wish rape didn't exist. I wish people were treated with respect. I wish people in society wouldn't, you know, just assume everyone wants sex. I think there's absolutely wrong with consensual sex and people who love sex. But there's plenty of people that enjoy sex out there. So why force yourself on someone who doesn't like it and doesn't enjoy it when there's enough sexuals in the world for everyone? Do you know what I mean? There's prostitutes they can hire if they want. You know, there's people who's sex workers who do that for a living. There's plenty of sexual people. There's plenty of women and guys that go to nightclubs that literally go there to get sex. So it's not like there isn't enough options for them. Why force themselves on someone that doesn't want it, doesn't like it, doesn't need it, doesn't want it to happen? I think that's what's so sad about it. You know what I mean? It's not like they can't get their sex fix somewhere else. I mean, they can buy sex toys, you know, I guess they don't like that because it's not the same effect, but who cares? It's like they can get sex toys to pleasure themselves. I mean, one of the things that's difficult when I get on this channel, I get some sexuals coming for advice and they're in relationships with asexuals, and it feels like sometimes there was one guy on here who'd been with his asexual partner, married with kids for 12 years, and said that it feels like I'm raping my wife. And when I was doing another video, the next video is like, well, if it feels like rape, don't, to you're raping an asexual, don't do it because it feels like that to you. Then goodness knows what it's feeling like to the asexual person. It basically is like rape, isn't it? If they don't want it in the first place. And it's a very difficult situation for a person who's sexual and asexual to be married. The sexual really wants sex, the asexual doesn't. But there are stuff that sexuals can do. They can have sex toys. They can masturbate. Some asexuals might be okay with doing other sexual acts, but not the intercourse itself. So they should be discussing that type of thing. But if a person don't want intercourse, they should be taking that off the table. They shouldn't be carrying on doing it. But sadly, they just like carrying on doing it. And they're like, oh, I feel really bad because my partner doesn't really want to do this. If you felt that bad, if you really gave to stuff and cared about your partner, you would stop doing that. And if you cannot categorically live in a monogamous relationship, if that person is monogamous, because you have to respect the fact your partner might be monogamous asexual, if they're a monogamous asexual, and it's totally going to be unfaithful if you go and have sex with someone else and they don't want you to do that, and and the sexual person doesn't want to use sex toys, they don't want to masturbate, they don't want to do anything else, then they should leave. They should split up, because there's no point in carrying on a relationship where a sexual person's having sex with an asexual that doesn't want it, because that's not a healthy, happy, loving relationship for either of them. It's torture. It's torture for the asexual who's being forced to have something they don't want to do, or being psychologically or emotionally manipulated, whether it's intentional or not. I mean, the partner might not be trying to emotionally manipulate them. So, I mean, a lot of the time they can be, but there might be sometimes they're not trying to do that, but they do it indirectly, because it's like, well, if you love me, you'll be doing this for me, which is like emotional blackmail. But it's kind of telling it how they feel at the same time. But it's a very emotionally upsetting and painful experience, and no relationship can sustain that for long periods of time and be happy. And this guy that came on my channel that commented, he said, my wife won't even kiss and cuddle me anymore. And that is why. Because asexuals know that if you kiss and cuddle, it's usually a prequel to sex for sexuals. And so if you continue doing that, they'll want and expect sex as their reward for kissing and cuddling you, which it shouldn't be like that. It should be kissing and cuddling separate. If your partner wants to kiss and cuddle, great, but it doesn't have to lead to sex. I am fortunate that my last long-term ex, who was abusive in every other way, but he was not abusive sexually. And if I decided that I didn't want to have sex in the end, we did do things like mutual masturbation and that. I would do that. And I did, we did try oral sex and all those type of other stuff, But there was times I just didn't want to have sex. And then, he wouldn't push me, and he would stop doing it partway through if I didn't want it, if it became too much and I couldn't do it anymore. And that's what I did really like about the relationship. That was he was bad in every other way. He's very psychologically abusive, very verbally abusive. I've been shouted at in the streets with really, really horrible words. He's like, he used to pin me up against furniture and stuff. It's horrible. It was a horrible relationship, right? But in terms of like sex, he was a completely different guy. He's very kind, very caring, very loving, very more about my physical needs than his. He was all about making me feel great about my own body. He was all about making me feel great about if I enjoyed things sexually, like if I did, my body did release fluids. He was like, that's really good. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. Like, it's perfectly normal for me to do that. He made me feel really comfortable like that. He would stop when I said, he used to ask me a second time. So I used to say, oh, I want to stop. And he's like, are you sure? And I used to say, yes, I want to stop. And then he'd stop, So there are sexual people out there that can respect you, that can work with you, and he was like a completely different guy. That's what was so weird about the relationship. But I stayed with him a lot of the time in that bad relationship, because I thought I'm never going to get a guy like this who will be like this sexually with me and who won't have sex with me for a couple of months. 2 or 3 months we didn't have sex at all, and then when we did, he was very good. He was always more trying to touch because at the time I didn't mind being naked with him, so I was different back then. I didn't mind him touching my body a lot. There were certain times when I thought, well, I do like this, and the other times where I'm not so keen on it in these circumstances. But like, that was just what we used to do, so I kind of got used to it. But it's like, oh, I'm not feeling too great him touching me now, because like, for example, I think it was like, I like all my clothes on or all my clothes off. It's really weird. It's like, if it's partial, him touching me under partial on and off stuff, it didn't feel so good. But if it's like we're already completely naked doing the sex anyway, touching's fine. But or I prefer like to be clothed. It's really weird. I can't explain it, but like a grey asexual, for example, is sexual attraction under limited, rare, or specific circumstance, or not enough to want to act on it. And like a grey romantic is someone who experiences romantic attraction under limited, rare, or specific circumstances, or not enough to want to act on it. It's kind of like that with me with touching. It's like, I don't mind being touched under limited, rare, or very specific circumstances. And you know what I mean? It's kind of like with the touching, it's like sometimes I'm fine with certain stuff, sometimes not. But back then, I was doing all different types of things. I was being completely naked the majority of the time with him, And so, but he was like, he would kiss, suck, cuddle, touch, lick, do whatever to my body, and I didn't do as much back to him because I didn't really like doing it as much. And do you know what I mean? I didn't, like, it's quite a lot of effort, to be honest. I know that sounds really bad because you got a partner, but it's like quite a lot of effort, and tired, and it's like, oh, I mean, it's like, and I didn't really feel like doing it so much. So he used to pay a lot of attention more to my body, and because I was getting all wet beforehand, that makes it less painful when you have sex for a woman if you're wet beforehand. So he used to do all that stuff, so sex was a more physically okay experience for me because he did all that stuff before. And I like the kissing, and like, I like the kissing loads, and his finger, I did like that, but I just wanted him to do that sometimes and not go the full intercourse. But he like stopped doing that because he wanted the intercourse. It's like, no, I've done that for you now. Like, it's my turn to have sex. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, okay, yes, let's get on with it then. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like that type of relationship. It's really hard, like, to explain all this, but especially if you've not had sex before. But I'm glad I had a good sexual experience. I'll be sharing a lot of this stuff in my Asexual Sex Stories book anyway, because obviously, I'm working on the new book. I always share my personal story. So I'll be telling the world all about my past sex life, which is really crazy for me. But I think it's important to know, because I've had like 4 guys in relationships that were bad at sex, and one that was good at it, because they were very attentive to my needs, because they weren't just a stick it in you guy. It's weird because before he met me, he said he hadn't had sex, but he'd done a lot of sex, not intercourse, but he'd done oral sex before, and he'd done sexual stuff like that. But he seemed very experienced to me, so I don't know if that's true. He probably watched porn, I'm guessing, because he was like into watching music videos that had like scantily clad women in it and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And so I think he was watching stuff. I don't know. But it was, but I did give him that book. I don't know if you've read my Asexual Perspectives book. I even mentioned it in I think I mentioned it in here. I haven't read my own story for so long. I keep reading other people's. But basically, I gave him this he was interested in different sexual positions. He was looking through this book once, and it had like real people in it, and I'm like, oh my god, it was like pornographic to me, and I didn't like that. And so I found a pocket book of different sexual positions with cartoons in it. So I bought him that for Christmas, I think it was. And then he started trying all these different sexual positions out on me, and I didn't associate that book with me and him having sex in the future. Him wanting to try all these positions out, because I didn't think of sex like, I'm disassociated from me wanting sex and him doing it with me. Do you know what I mean? I didn't think that way. I just thought, well, that's nice. He can look at those cartoony pictures, because I wasn't happy about him looking at other naked women in a book. Do you know what I mean? And so I didn't associate the fact that he was going to want to do that with me, which I should have, because I'm like, I was his partner, yeah, but I just didn't. I just thought it'd be nice for him to look at and learn from out of information interest. And so, yeah, that was quite weird, quite weird. But yeah, so I have had a really good sexual experience. And so, but after, even though I had a good sexual experience, with the Bangladesh guy, going back to what I was saying with the Bangladesh guy, I couldn't bring myself to have sex. It's not like I haven't had it in the past, but it's like now, it's just as soon as particularly when I got to Bangladesh guy, all of a sudden I just knew I couldn't have sex anymore. I can't, it's like I've got resistance to it throughout my whole body now. That's saying you just can't do that. No matter what, you just can't. You can't force yourself to do that anymore. It's just like it's just like a barrier you can't cross. Literally, I physically can't do it. It's almost like, when you have two magnets and you're trying to push them and they're in polar opposite directions. They're polar opposite. So when you're going, it's like almost like they're rubbing against, like each other with air. It's like they're trying to, you're trying to force it and you can't. It can't line up. It just doesn't happen. I don't feel that I can do that anymore. I feel frozen. I feel like I don't know. It's kind of like anxiety, but it's not, because I know what anxiety is. But it is, obviously I would get anxious about doing stuff like that. But it's like every cell of my body does not want to have sex intercourse anymore. I'm not saying I wouldn't be touched. I'm not saying, I don't really want to touch and suck a guy's penis anymore, which I have done in the past. But I don't know if I'd ever change on that if I was with a sexual person. I don't think I would, but I don't know. I kind of like if he's got clothes on and I happen to touch his bit. I don't know. I kind of really don't mind that so much if he's got clothes on. It's a bit weird for me. I don't mind it if I touch it with my body. If I touch it with my hand, I'm not so bad with it because he's got his clothes on. And to me, it's just, I don't know, like stroking a lumpy thing or something. But to actually like do it with him, like with my hand with his naked bit, I just don't want that at all. And I don't, in general, I don't want to touch his bit down below his penis. I don't want to do that. It's only if I was with a really sexual guy, which I can't really be with anyway long term. Yeah, I can't really be with a sexual guy long term anyway. So that's really irrelevant. But I wouldn't really want to do that. You know what I mean? I'm not really comfortable doing it. So it's not something I mean, even through the clothes, it's not something I really want to go and do. But I'm okay with my body rubbing up again. Like if I'm sat on a guy's lap or in between his legs, or kissing him, I'm all right with my body touching his bit through the clothing, as long as he's got clothing on. I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. But it's a physical act of like touching that naked that really repulses me. But obviously that's not as bad as sexual intercourse. To me, sexual intercourse is the worst. I'm just so adverse to doing that now. I just can't bring myself to do that anymore. I just physically, it makes me feel yuck. I'm like, no, I just can't. And with the Bangladesh guy, he was very good looking, but I just couldn't do that. I just remember thinking, I forced myself to be naked in the shower with him and try not to be self-conscious, because I thought that's all I can do. That's the best I can do is be completely naked. I can't do anymore because I can't bring myself to do the sex. I'm glad, obviously, I didn't have sex with the Bangladesh guy because he went off with another woman, because I wouldn't have sex with him, and no one wants to be with a person like that anyway. I think I've got one more story answer to read to you. So, yeah, where are we? Yeah, can you tell me a time when you've had to deal with intrusive questions or a difficult situation due to your asexuality and what happened? So this is Darcy's brief story. Some people ask me really personal questions, but I've always been one for learning and also one for educating when I feel I have something to add. So I just answer them as best as I can. I don't really get offended easily. And that's really pretty much like with me, especially because I do this channel all the time. I don't really get offended so much when people say stuff, I'm a bit like, oh, here we go again. When I get a sexual coming, goes, if I say I don't want sex, it's like the same thing. So, oh, you don't want sex. Why don't you want sex? You know what? Why? I don't understand. It's like, I can't be bothered to explain it sometimes, and other times I do. You know, and it's like, it's just like, you know what I mean? But I like educating people. I think if we don't educate people about asexuality and try to educate people, even if they are highly sexual, then we're never gonna get asexuality better known as a sexual orientation throughout the globe. And that's why it's so, I've got a new subscriber. Hello, new subscriber, Azure. So yeah, I think it's really important that I do educate sexuals. I think it's really important that we do. I mean, you know, I guess from a sexual person's point of view, they don't know what asexuality is. They've never heard of it before. Everyone around them tells them sex is what they must be doing and having. And so to come across someone who doesn't want it is very rare. And they want to wonder, you know, they want to know why. They wonder why. So it's quite natural in some ways for them to question it because they're curious. But then sometimes they're questioning it not because they're curious, but because they want to ram down your throat that you should be having sex. And those are the people that are, you know, that you have to just leave alone, block them or whatever. If they won't listen to you, you know, you can tell them because I don't experience sexual attraction. I don't have a need or a want for sexual intercourse, and leave it at that. And if they're happy with that, you know, if they accept your explanation rather than happy with it, because, you know, it doesn't really matter what they think, but if they accept your explanation, great, because then you know, you've made some leeway, they're respecting you. But if they start then going, and then if they then start going on to talk about sexual acts and doing sexual things, and oh, you'd love sex if you were with me, then that's really abusive. You know, it's just not respectful. And so I think, you know, I don't really get offended. I mean, I speak to so many people in private message. I mean, people don't realize the amount of stuff that I goes into private message. People come to me about all sorts of different things to do with asexuality, and some of it's quite, you know, like they're in really upsetting situations or potentially upsetting situations, you know, and it's kind of difficult. I have to you know, try and help them as best I can. But I do this channel every night, you know, so people can ask me questions because, you know, they've got access to me all the time. And me, I don't know another asexual person who's a YouTuber who does live streams all the time like I do, where you can literally ask me anything you want. You know, I don't see that on other YouTube channels. I used to do a lot of filmed ones now, but I don't, because I like to have, I like to be able to be here for people to answer questions, because if people private message me all the time, I cannot get around 10 people private messaging them all the time. It's better for me to do this channel where anyone can come and ask me a question, and other people might want to know the answer. Do you see what I mean? So I can tell you all at the same time the answer, rather than trying to message everyone backwards and forwards all the time and not being able to help as many people. But yeah, it's sadly, you know, asexuals do have to deal a lot of the time with difficult circumstances and tricky situations, you know, because the fact we are so different, the fact that we don't want sex, the fact that it's not logical for us to associate love with sex, you know, we can separate it. To us, romance, sex, love, they can all be completely separate things. But to most sexuals, they're all intertwined together, you know, and I think that's what makes it really difficult, you know. And I think I don't completely think it's you could try to live stream your answers, obviously try to generalize it so that you don't reveal any personal information of them or anything, but that way you'll be getting the information out. Oh, that's what I was trying to say, Martin, sorry. Yeah, I do live stream my answers. That's what I was trying to say. So people private message me, and I was trying to say that, you know, I can't get around everyone. So instead of, like, you know, saying everything or in private message, I do this channel now so that the questions that people want answered, I can, you know, like say 10 people have a similar sort of question, I can answer it in a live stream to everyone, and people can even come on the live stream and chat to me, and I can give them the answer on air. Do you know what I mean? Live. So that was what I meant. So I do get asked questions, and I do a live stream, and then I'll post it in the groups. I've done that quite a few times. There's one friend in my Ace business group, and she's asked me a few questions, and I've told her sometimes I've told her the answer because she needed to know it there and then, but I've expanded on the answer in the video, and then she's watched the video and said thank you very much, You know, I get asked questions all the time. So sometimes I will literally do a video on it, or I will answer them briefly and then do a video and send them the video link so they can see it. Because that's why it's you know, and I have to be careful not to reveal any personal information of them. Exactly. You know, I have to be. I mean, I've actually done a lot of videos, live streams as well, on people's answers to my questions or conversations that they're okay about. So, for example, on Meetup.com, there was a Coupio romantic, and I asked them if I could use some of the answers. So I wanted to know more about what it felt like to be a Coupio romantic from a Coupio romantic's actual own point of view. And they said I could use that information in a video to help others, so long as I didn't reveal their personal information, which I did do, you know. So I do that as well, you know. If you know, not very often, you know, I'm careful with what I say. You know, I have a lot of, you know, I have real close asexual guy friends, for example. They tell me loads of personal stuff. I don't go around putting on YouTube. I wouldn't do that. I'm their friend and I keep their secrets. Do you know what I mean? So I don't say everything on YouTube. A lot of the time I just say things from my own point of view, so that people can, you know, so that I'm not revealing too much of other people's information or feelings. I'm just revealing the answers to their problems or queries or questions, or I'm saying how I feel about certain things that have come up without revealing who that person's about, you know, because I think privacy is really important. It's like even on ASAP, you know, I go on a ASAP a lot, and I talk about a lot of people on ASAP that are fake profiles. I don't usually show the fake profiles. I just usually say some of the stuff about the profile, because I don't think it's fair to go into it. I mean, I did meet a guy on ASAP last night, and he's really cute, and we ended up video chatting for over 4 hours into this morning. You know, I haven't even mentioned him. And we had a lot in common, actually, but he lives in a completely different country to me. New Zealand, which is about, you know. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't revealed anything about any conversation me and him had, apart from we both thought each other was cute. You know, we've got on really well, but we both want someone in our own country, so that wouldn't work. But they're a nice person. I got on really well with them. We have loads in common, like going to zoos, aquariums, theme parks, watching superhero movies, watching Disney movies. He's 23, so yeah, I got on really well with him. I had a really lovely chat for like over 4 hours, and because we connected off ASAP on Facebook, and he immediately video called me, which I wasn't expecting, because usually only sexuals do that type of thing to me, not asexuals. So that was really good. And we ended up just chatting for over 4 hours when we only just started talking. Got on like a house on fire. It was really, really good. So yeah. But you know, another thing I could bring up as well is like, which is going off this particular topic a bit, is like, you know, the amount of people that you don't hear from, and then all of a sudden show up in your life, and that's no good either. You know, like there was a guy who's asexual apparently on an asexual dating site, and I was friends with him for a long time, and he hardly talked to me. And one of the last actual video chat conversation we had was about him liking this woman abroad, and he was asking my advice about how to persuade her to come over and live with him. So it wasn't anything to do with me and him. And then last night he turns up in my inbox on Facebook with a GIF, which is a man and woman passionately kissing with not much more on than a towel. And I'm like, question mark, is there someone you want to kiss? And he's like, yeah, you. And I'm like, well, I checked his profile and he's unfriended me. I'm like, you've unfriended me. You haven't spoke to me a long time. And last time, and you told me, you know, that you're interested in another woman. I said, so it's never going to happen, you know, as in the kissing between me and him's never going to happen. You know, this is not a good guy, you know, who does this. No person's good if they just vanish out of your life for months and all of a sudden turn up and expect you to like be interested in them. He had his chance with me. He was on asexuality.com. I connected with him through there. He was wishy-washy about me in the beginning. Like he would randomly start trying to video chat with me, and then stop. And then he had his mate round, he wasn't interested in talking to me until his mate had gone, and then he would call me up at inconvenient times. And it was all on his terms and what he was interested in. And then we didn't speak. And then then it was like I was giving all my advice. I didn't even have to do that. I spent like an hour trying to give him advice about this woman he was in love with, And then he turns up out of the blue saying he wants to kiss me, and then he's unfriended me. It's like, well, no. And I guess that's an important point, is you shouldn't give your love to someone or care or time and energy to someone who's not bothering with you. If they haven't bothered with you for months, they don't really care about you. Then out of the blue, all of a sudden they want to meet up with you, be really close and kissing and cuddling with you. Then it's not on, is it? You deserve better than that. I'm not saying, a lot of asexuals on this channel don't necessarily even want a relationship or anything like that, but you might still get approached. You might still get a person that 1 minute they're not interested in you for like 4 or 5 months, and all of a sudden they are, or they're not even interested in being your friend, and then all of a sudden they pop up like you're their best friend, like, oh yeah, we're such best friends, like, and they haven't put any time, energy, or effort into actually forming a relationship, even if it's a platonic friendship of you, with you. It's crazy. And that's going really off topic, but I thought I should just bring that up. But yeah, so in order to answer your question, Martin, I already do that on this channel. That's what I actually meant, that I can't get around everyone to give them advice all the time now. So I do this channel on a live stream so I can answer people's questions. I do a lot of my live streams are just based on situations that crop up in my life, like in forums, when I'm talking in private message to someone, from my own life experience, obviously self-dating as well. So I'm surprised I can keep putting content out all the time about different stuff. Actually, it amazes me how I literally live my asexual life. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, but I think, to summarize, that people who are asexual are always going to get asked some intrusive questions or be in difficult situations because of the nature of the fact that we don't want something that everyone else does, which is sex. That's inevitably going to lead to some people questioning, well, why don't you want sex? Because to them it's not normal. But it doesn't mean to say it's not normal for us, because it's perfectly normal for us. But we have to normalize asexuality within a heteronormative world. So we have to make asexuality seem like it's completely normal, which it is for asexuals to be asexual, so that they get used to the idea. It's the fact that it's so far removed from their own idea that they can't accept it easily, or that it puzzles them, or they think something's wrong with it. But the more we normalize it, the more we get out into society as it's fine, it's natural for some people to be this way, the more they'll accept it, and the less we should be having to deal with intrusive questions. Like, I think I told you recently that I met a guy who was bisexual when I was going over near my local supermarket, and he already has a friend who's asexual, and that was really refreshing, because instead of all the intrusive questions like you usually get, I didn't get asked that. Instead, I've got like, oh yeah, I've got an asexual friend in America, and I'll tell him about you in your book, and I said, well, you might want to be in my book, and yeah, so it all worked out really well. So I think if people are educated about asexuality, if people genuinely are open-minded, then you can get a really good response. It's beautiful. That's the ideal response you want when you meet someone. Say, oh, I know someone who's asexual too. You couldn't really ask for a better thing other than them being asexual themselves. Saying, like, I know an asexual person. I've heard of asexuality before. I know what it is. There's nothing better feeling than when you meet someone, they already know about it, and you're like, oh, this is so cool, because it feels like it's right even more than it's good, because it's like we're getting the word out, more and more people are understanding it. But the guy who's his friend who's in America who is asexual, I did email them, and that guy's in shock that I'm asexual, because he goes, it's unheard of. Like, he's in the USA as well, as far as I know, and he said, over here it's not really talked about. And I'm thinking, well, there's loads of asexuals in America, tons of them. Do you know what I mean? There's more in America than anywhere else that I can see from the statistics. I get more people from America watching this channel than anything. I get more people on social media and in my groups, asexual groups, that are from USA as well. So I don't know what part of the USA he lives in, but yeah. But anyway, he's shocked that I'm asexual. Like, he's like, I don't think he's met another asexual that he knows of before. So yeah, but it's nice for that person to come across me now, because it means they've got someone else that they can think, oh, there's another asexual there. So yeah, so I think it's nice if you get someone who you come across and they do already understand asexuality, because then you don't get all these intrusive questions. I mean, you might still get some questions out of curiosity. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being curious. I don't think there's anything wrong per se in sexuals wanting to know more about asexuals and how they relate to sex. I don't think there's anything per se wrong with that. It's just because it seems very personal to us, and therefore it's wrong, because it's like not respecting our privacy in terms of our own sexuality and what we like to do or don't do sexually. That's how it becomes intrusive. I get sexuals starting to talk to me and it gets really intrusive after a while, because with me it's like I will say a certain amount because I'm professional. I help asexuals, I try to educate sexuals, but there is times when they try and change it around, so it gets very personal and intrusive. So instead of it being generalized about what asexuality is and like and don't like, they'll throw it around on me and say, oh, so what do you like then? Tell me what you do and don't like, and it's like they're trying to get into a conversation where I'm saying what I do and don't like being, and where I do and don't like being touched in a sexual situation and having sex. And it's like, that's not what I'm about. I'm not about them putting themselves in the mindset that they're going to have sex with me, or that I'm interested in having sex with them, because I'm not. So they cross the line sometimes with that, and then I kind of have to like say something to them, like, well, it's not really about me and you, is it? Or it's not really about me. Do you know what I mean? Specifically, it doesn't really matter what I do. It's not your business. It's not, that's a really personal stuff that I don't need to share. I mean, I share pretty much everything on this channel anyway, so if they bothered to watch it, they pretty much know all this stuff. It really irritates me as well. There are some people that are friends with me on Facebook, they're sexual, that all of a sudden start talking about sexual stuff. And then it's like they don't watch this channel. And it's like, I don't want to have to repeat myself when, if you can't be bothered to watch my channel and I do a YouTube show, what's the point in talking to you? That highly sexual guy that I was telling you about, that was saying stuff about my pictures. I think he subscribed to this channel a very, very, very long time ago, because I've known him for a few years online. So I think he subscribed to his channel from what he was saying. And I'm like, if you're subscribed, then just watch my channel. Stop asking me all these questions, Put the work in and watch the channel if you're that fussed, or if you like me as much as you say you do. So yeah, anyway, that's all I've got for tonight. If you've got any more questions, comments, please leave them down below in between videos. So I'll try and answer them either in the comment section, or I'll try and create another video answering it. Obviously, we're doing Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month at the moment, so every day is all focused on a topic from this Asexual Perspectives book. And if you haven't got a copy already, you can do so down below. Martin, who's in this stream at the moment, he is actually in this book. So yeah, he's awesome. And until next time, embrace your quirky and each other's. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon so get notified every time I go live. Right now, I post a new video. I have to say a big thank you to Martin. Thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome. And a big thank you to her. I am awesome, to be fair. You are not very what can I put it? Shy, Martin, in that department of self-confidence. It's good. It's good. It takes one awesome person to know another awesome person. I don't know if I call myself awesome though. I really like myself and love myself. I have to try saying I'm awesome more, I think, to myself. It's a good positive affirmation. I am awesome. I'll try that one. Anyway, thank you, Martin, for watching. Thank you, Heather. Don't forget to share this video if you think someone will benefit from it. I really appreciate the shares, the likes, the love, the thumbs up. And I will see you on the next video live stream. Thank you for taking part. See you for Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month tomorrow, or today now, because we're over midnight. Yeah, so be today. Take care. Bye. Lots of love to you both. Bye. Thanks for watching.